Well, this morning, the New York Times dropped an absolute bombshell of an article detailing new facts and information about Jeffrey Epstein's New York City mansion on East 71st Street. That mansion is an extremely valuable piece of property, and we've known that it was pretty much central to Jeffrey Epstein's criminal operations over the course of his adult life. But this article is filled with new information, new letters, and new photos that I've never seen before. So let's get into it. You may remember that a week or two ago, the Wall Street Journal came out with an article saying that President Donald Trump had written a crude and kind of mysterious letter to Jeffrey Epstein for his 50th birthday. Well, this article starts out with a letter for Jeffrey Epstein's 63rd birthday. That letter was from Ehud Barak, the former Prime Minister of Israel, and his wife, who said, quote, "There is no limit to your curiosity. You are like a closed book to many of them, but you know everything about every one." Further down in the article, there is a letter from a man named Mortimer Zuckerman, who is a media owner. He's owned the New York Daily News, the Atlantic, Fast Company magazine. According to Wikipedia, he's worth about $2.6 billion. His letter included, quote, "ingredients for a meal that would reflect the culture of the mansion, a simple salad, and whatever else would enhance Jeffrey's sexual performance." The article also features a full letter from the director, Woody Allen, who said that the dinners reminded him of Dracula's castle, quote, "where Lugosi has 3 young female vampires who service the place." You can actually read a full scan of the Woody Allen letter, which says at the end, quote, "the large phone and computer at his right hand," talking about Jeffrey Epstein, "does take some of the relaxed home cooking atmosphere out of it, but one can't have everything. Not at Castle Dracula." Actually, strangely enough, I went to see Jeffrey Epstein's mansion last year in New York City, and as I was walking back through the beautiful Upper East Side, I actually passed Woody Allen, who was kind of walking hunched over with his wife. I made eye contact with his wife, but it seemed like she didn't want to talk. Continuing on, the article gives a lot of details of things that we already knew that are mostly background. For example, that people in the White House had previously said that they were going to release the Jeffrey Epstein files and have failed to do so, that Steve Bannon had visited Jeffrey Epstein's mansion and had recorded him for a documentary that's never seen the light of day, that Ghislaine Maxwell was just transferred to a lower security prison in Texas, etc., etc. And then we get more details about the interior design and decorations that Epstein had put in that mansion. Quote, "dozens of framed prosthetic eyeballs lined the entryway." We've actually seen this in Jeffrey Epstein's Paris mansion. The eyeball motif apparently extends across oceans. Jeffrey Epstein had an interest in science, although some scientists that had previously met with him said that they found his ideas kind of shallow and vague. Continuing on, quote, "a sculpture of a woman wearing a bridal gown and clutching a robe was suspended in a central atrium. In the ground floor dining room, Mr. Epstein entertained a rotating cast of celebrities, academics, politicians, and businessmen. The food could be mundane, sometimes nothing more than a buffet of Chinese takeout," Mr. Allen's letter noted, but the events were anything but. Photos show that guests sat in leopard print chairs around a large rectangular table. Occasionally, attendees said in interviews, a magician performed. Sometimes a chalkboard was wheeled out so a guest could sketch a diagram or write a mathematical formula. Epstein preserved a map of Israel drawn on a chalkboard with Mr. Barak's signature, according to a photo reviewed by the New York Times. Then they show a photo of this table with numerous photos of Jeffrey Epstein with various celebrities and famous people, including Pope John Paul II. That photo has been public for a while, we know about that. Mick Jagger, Elon Musk, and Fidel Castro. Then there are more photos of Larry Summers, former President Bill Clinton, and billionaire Richard Branson. Interestingly, there is a photo of Jeffrey Epstein with Melania Trump and Donald Trump. We have the full-sized photo of that. However, Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's former girlfriend, who really stuck with him until the end, is cropped out of that photo, so that's kind of interesting. There's a framed dollar bill signed by Bill Gates, who founded Microsoft, and they say it was possibly as payment of a bet. He wrote, "I was wrong," with an exclamation point, Bill Gates. Continuing on, quote, Up a grand staircase was Mr. Epstein's wood-paneled office, featuring a massive desk. Photos show a taxidermied tiger lounging on a lush rug. In the office, according to photos reviewed by the Times, Mr. Epstein showcased a green first edition of Lolita, the 1955 novel in which an intellectual develops an obsession with a 12-year-old girl. Atop a wooden sideboard were more framed photos, including one of Mr. Epstein with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Then we get a photo of his bedroom. The walls are wallpapered in some sort of a floral pattern, and there's a blue and white sort of motif across the rug and the curtains, with what appears to be some sort of a love seat facing the bed. Now, this is where it gets truly interesting. To the best of my knowledge, the cameras that have been reported to be all over Epstein's properties have mostly been speculative, referred to in depositions, but there haven't actually been too many conclusive photos. Now, we can see in the corner of Epstein's bedroom, above this crown molding, is a surveillance camera pointed directly at the bed. Then in an adjoining room, we can see another surveillance camera. The New York Times says, quote, several of Mr. Epstein's victims have said the mansion was outfitted with a network of hidden video cameras. There's also been mention that Jeffrey Epstein's New Mexico compound, the Zorro Ranch, has been outfitted with security cameras, although there hasn't been conclusive proof of that. However, this report lends credence to that idea. Quote, in the massage room, there were paintings of naked women, a large silver ball and chain, and shelves stocked with lubricant, according to photos reviewed by the New York Times. It says no surveillance cameras were visible in the photos of the massage room. Down towards the bottom of the article, they say, the Times reviewed 7 birthday messages given to Mr. Epstein in 2016. In addition to those from Mr. Zuckerman, Mr. Allen, and Mr. Barack, there were letters from the linguist Noam Chomsky and his wife, Jochi Ito, an entrepreneur who years later would resign from MIT and the board of the New York Times Company because of his ties to Mr. Epstein, as well as Lawrence M. Krauss, a prominent physicist. Lawrence Krauss has said some truly weird things about Jeffrey Epstein in the past. In fact, far from acting ashamed of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, as so many people have, Lawrence Krauss actually seems to almost be proud of it. After Jeffrey Epstein pleaded guilty to procuring a girl below age 18 for prostitution, Lawrence Krauss said, quote, as a scientist, I always judge things on empirical evidence, and he always has women ages 19 to 23 around him, but I've never seen anything else. So as a scientist, my presumption is that whatever the problems were, I would believe him over other people. I don't feel tarnished in any way by my relationship with Jeffrey. I feel raised by it. That unapologetic tone kind of continued in this New York Times article. The Times reached out to Krauss, asking him his thoughts on the letter that he wrote to Jeffrey Epstein, and he said he didn't remember the letter, but he attended, quote, several lunches with very interesting discussions at Jeffrey Epstein's home. Now, there's so much that we could say. We could talk all day about Jeffrey Epstein's New York City mansion, how he purchased the home from Les Wexner, the owner of Limited Brands, the man who gave Jeffrey Epstein his power of attorney for some strange reason that's not public, how he rose from being a math teacher at one of New York City's most prestigious private schools to owning what the New York Times describes as a 7-story, 21,000 square foot townhouse under circumstances that seemingly no one can explain. Or we could talk about how so many notable, accomplished men and women continued to fraternize with Jeffrey Epstein almost 10 years after he had been convicted of procuring a minor for prostitution. But we'll have to leave that for another day. I'm going to link some wonderful resources if you want to learn more about this topic in the description. This is coming up on the 10th video that I've made about Jeffrey Epstein, so I'm not sure how many more I'm going to make, but if you have an interest in it, let me know, and maybe I'll make more. I'm doing research on a video all about Jeffrey Epstein's Zorro Ranch in New Mexico, which I mentioned earlier. So if you're interested in that, you should subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.